Welcome to NFL Nexus, where we dive deep into the strategic decisions that really shape the league. Today, we're taking a close look at the Minnesota Vikings. They're facing an offseason that's just full of incredibly tough choices, and one wrong move could set off a domino effect across the entire roster.
You know, the Vikings' 2025 season was a really harsh lesson in just how fragile a team can be. It showed everybody, loud and clear, how fast a team's floor can completely collapse. And it all came down to the single most important position in all of sports.
So here's what we're breaking down today. We're going to look at that initial problem, walk through the tough cuts needed to even think about solving it, and then we'll see how one of those simple cuts just unravels into this massive strategic dilemma involving two of their best young receivers. All right, let's get into it.
Okay, let's set the stage here. The number one mission for the Vikings this offseason is crystal clear. You could write it in big, bold letters on the wall of the front office. The quarterback room cannot be left to chance ever again. It's the one lesson they absolutely have to learn from last year.
I mean, after rookie J.J. McCarthy went down, the team had to turn to their backup, Max Brosmer, who just wasn't ready. And the results, well, let's be honest, it was a disaster. The offense just sputtered, the team dropped games they should have won, and the whole season got completely derailed. So the front office knows they need a stabilizing presence, a true pro who can push McCarthy, sure, but more importantly, step in and actually win games if he has to. They just can't afford another collapse like that.
But here's the reality of the salary cap era, right? That kind of reliable veteran quarterback, he doesn't come cheap, not even close. And to make room for that player, the Vikings simply don't have the luxury of paying for depth pieces that could be swapped out for cheaper options. And that means some tough, pretty cold-hearted business decisions are coming.
So, based on team needs and contract situations, analysts have pointed to 5 key players who might be on the chopping block to free up that cash. Look, this isn't about disrespecting these guys. It's just about reallocating your money to fix that fatal flaw we were just talking about. Let's run through the list.
First up, we've got the cleanest, most straightforward decision of the whole bunch. Quarterback, Carson Wentz. I mean, he was part of the problem last year, and bringing him back would make absolutely zero sense given the team's new mission for stability. He is the exact thing they're trying to move away from.
And this quote just hits the nail on the head. The entire point is to add reliability, to build a solid backup plan. Wentz, well, throughout his whole career, he's battled both inconsistency and injuries. You can't plan for your starter to get hurt and then have your backup plan also be a huge injury risk. Keeping him would just recreate the exact same fragile house of cards they're trying so desperately to escape. It's a classic case of addition by subtraction.
Okay, next up is a guy who's definitely had his moments for the Vikings, running back Ty Chandler. He's a familiar face, a solid player, which is exactly what makes this a difficult but pretty necessary business move for a smart front office that gets how you build a roster in today's NFL.
This is really where good organizations stay cold and disciplined. You just can't spend meaningful money on a rotational running back anymore. The position has become one of the most replaceable in the league, a spot you can fill pretty effectively in the later rounds of the draft or with a veteran on a minimum deal. Chandler might get a nice little contract on the open market, and the Vikings' priority has to be letting another team be the one to pay it.
Now we get to Rondale Moore. He represents that classic trap that so many NFL teams fall into. He's a player with this really intriguing set of skills. You know, elite speed, crazy agility, all that gadget potential. And it looks great on paper. But does it really fit the team's main mission of supporting a young quarterback? He's exciting, sure. But is he foundational?
Look, the number one priority this offseason is creating stability and clarity for the quarterback. That means you need receivers with clearly defined roles, guys you can trust on every single down. Moore is more of a luxury item, a chess piece, as the source says, who needs plays specifically designed for him to really be effective. If another team wants to pay him like a core player, Minnesota has to be disciplined, tip their cap, and let someone else foot that bill.
Now, Jalen Naylor, he's described as a tougher call emotionally. He's a guy who's been in the building, he's developed with the team, he's shown these flashes of real talent. But from a pure, unemotional, roster-building standpoint, the logic seems simple enough. Justin Jefferson's got that massive contract, so the team can't really afford to pay market value for depth at receiver. At least, that's the theory. Just remember his name, because we are going to circle back to him in a big way later on. And finally, we have cornerback Jeff Okudah.
Now, he's a former top 3 draft pick, right? And that pedigree alone means his market value might be based more on what he could be rather than what he's actually proven to be on the field. This is the ultimate potential versus production debate.
And this is such a critical point in team building. The Vikings desperately need help at corner, but overpaying for potential is how you get into salary cap hell. Another team, maybe blinded by that top 3 pick status, might give him a contract that his on-field performance just doesn't justify. The smart, responsible move is to let that other team pay for the upside. Minnesota should either be shelling out big money for a proven true difference maker or using draft picks to find and develop their own guys.
Hey, before we continue with the breakdown, just a quick note that you can help support NFL Nexus and keep these deep dives coming by checking out our new line of football-themed coloring books. They're actually great for fans of all ages, and you can find them using the link down in the description or by scanning the QR code on your screen right now. We really appreciate all the support. Okay, so we just talked about Jalen Nailor. Letting him walk seems like a pretty straightforward, if maybe tough decision to save some money for the QB room, right? Well, this is where a simple offseason plan completely falls apart, and the story gets really interesting.
I mean, if you just look at the basic facts, he was the number 3, sometimes the number 4 wide receiver on the depth chart. He was a role player. His season stats don't immediately jump off the page and scream, you gotta re-sign this guy. It seems like a classic case of a player you thank for his service and just wish well as he signs somewhere else. But that is only the surface of the story.
Because one prominent analyst projects his next contract will be a 3-year deal worth a staggering $36 million. That's an average of $12 million a year. For a player who made just over $1 million last season, that is a 990% raise. I mean, that number just changes everything.
So the question you're probably asking yourself right now is, how? How does a guy with that stat line, on a team with struggling quarterback play, suddenly command that kind of money on the open market? Well, to understand why, you got to look past the box score and turn on the film.
Now, what's so interesting about this table is the context it gives us. Just look at the usage. Nailor was clearly the 4th option in this passing game. He was only targeted 49 times all year long. That's barely 10% of the team's total pass attempts. He was barely used. So what on earth are other teams seeing that makes them willing to pay up like that?
And this quote is the key. The reason for that massive contract projection isn't the raw stats, it's what he did with those extremely limited opportunities. Analysts watching the tape see a player who has all the traits of a future star. He's got the spatial awareness to find those soft spots in zone coverage, he's got inside-outside flexibility, and he's a surprisingly good run blocker. Other teams aren't bidding on what he was, they're bidding on what the tape says he's about to become.
So how does Nailor's potential payday affect the rest of the roster? Well, it doesn't exist in a vacuum. Not at all. In fact, it creates this massive ripple effect that directly impacts the future of the Vikings' other young star receiver, their former first-round pick, Jordan Addison.
This slide right here lays out the financial pressure cooker the Vikings find themselves in. They've already got a massive market-setting contract on the books for Justin Jefferson. On top of that, Addison is now eligible for an extension and a decision on his pricey 5th-year option, that option teams have on all first-rounders to keep him for an extra year, is due by May 1st. That option's worth a projected $17.9 million, fully guaranteed. You just can't afford to have 3 massive contracts at the wide receiver position. It's not sustainable.
And this is what creates a fascinating, high-stakes game of strategic chess for the Vikings front office. All of a sudden, the simple question of, should we re-sign our 3rd wide receiver, has morphed into this franchise-altering crossroads with multiple, really complex paths forward.
So this brilliantly illustrates the 2 main paths. You've got path A, you trade Jordan Addison right now while his value is sky high, you get back a ton of draft capital, and you use the money you saved to pay Jalen Nailor, betting that he develops into the star the tape suggests he can be. Then there's path B. You play it safe, you let Nailor walk, you swallow the potential loss of a future star, and you commit to extending Addison, locking in your proven 1-2 punch with Jefferson, but also tying up a gargantuan chunk of your salary cap in just 2 receivers.
But there's always a 3rd way. The Vikings could get even more creative here. They could pull the trigger on the Addison trade, but instead of putting all their eggs in the Nailor basket, they use the combined cap space to sign both Nailor and another quality veteran free agent, maybe a speedster like Rashid Shaheed or a reliable guy like Marquise Brown. This path spreads the risk around and could potentially give their new quarterback 2 really good receiving options for about the price of 1 Jordan Addison extension.
And really, that's what this all boils down to. What started as a simple hit list to clear cap space has unraveled into this complex web of interconnected, high-stakes decisions. There are no easy, obvious answers here. Every single path forward carries a significant and calculated risk.
This is what modern NFL team building is all about. It's a masterclass in how you allocate your resources. That simple, necessary goal of adding a veteran quarterback has now forced a complete top-to-bottom reevaluation of one of the roster's biggest strengths. Every single choice has a ripple effect that's going to impact multiple players, the salary cap, and the team's direction for years to come.
So now, we're going to turn it over to you. Put on the general manager hat. What's your move? Do you pay Jalen Nailor and bet on that upside? Do you trade Jordan Addison for a haul of picks? Or do you play it safe and extend the proven star? There's really no wrong answer here, only strategy. Let us know your full plan down in the comments below. And hey, if you enjoyed this deep dive, don't forget to like this explainer and subscribe to NFL Nexus for more breakdowns all offseason long. Thanks for watching.